What is up guys, it is Simba here and welcome back to another team racing video on F1 24, and today it's the big one. We return to the highest level, WOR Legacy Division, and this is basically the highest level in console racing, and on screen is everything that we're going to be covering in this video because this was a sprint weekend and all the timestamps will be left down in the description down below, so you can check out the part that you want to watch. Make sure you get subscribed, because I've worked hard to edit this one and cut it down as much as I can. But we start off with the one-shot qualifying here for the Singapore Grand Prix. We're back in the Williams, and we're going to make sure that we don't repeat Baku on F1 22 by binning it when points are on the card. So, here we are in the one-shot quali. Never really done one of these before in a league racing environment. So, the main priority here is just not to invalidate. And also, there is absolutely no grip compared to other qualifying sessions you could do on this game. So short qualifying sessions have more grip than one-shot qualifying. And at the moment, we're not doing too well. We're currently 16th as we go through turn 7, now through turn 8. We clipped the curb a little bit on the inside, which is not really something you want to do, as we are negotiating through turn 9, and now we're coming up to where George Russell absolutely binned it in 2023. Turn 10, we don't quite cut the inside curb as much as you want to there, and even through that right-hander, you could bounce over the curb, but we decided to play it safe because we don't want to invalidate. We are slowly climbing our way in the midfield. We have gone from 17th up to 13th as we approach the final sector, and as you can see, we are quite a way off TTM Flopman right now, but the priority is just making sure this lap is valid, because if we get this wrong, we're most likely going to be starting last. So, coming into the final sector now, on the brakes at the 50-meter board, down to third, sending it over the curbs, nice exit, and it's just a run up to the line now with this double left-hander up towards the line. We're up to P12, up to P11 by the time we crossed the line, and I was actually pretty happy with that. There was a lot of pressure going into that lap because if we got it wrong, we'll be unlikely to score points in the sprint, where the top 10 score in the sprint, so the point system is a little bit different. Our teammate for this race, FRT Rain, is in P12, so there's pretty much a chance for both cars to snatch maybe 1 or 2 points. And I will say, the title is what it is because I'm basically a super sub. I was told a day before the race that I was racing, and these guys practice for these races for at least probably a week or something, or a number of days. So we're very under practiced, but we're starting 11th, and we're going to go into the sprint race with a chance to snatch some points. 5 red lights ahead of everyone for the first of 2 races here in Singapore, and the lights are out, and we are on the way for the sprint race, and the start is pretty decent. We're coming up towards turn number 1 alongside the McLaren of Jesler there, and we go round the outside of him, and we're going to hold the outside line for turns 2 and 3, and we complete the move, and just like that, we're up into the points paying positions on the first lap, as we've got BRT Thomas just in front of us as well. BRT looked really quick on this game, and he'll be eager to make up some place as well. But so far, so good. We're just trying to settle into the race now and see if we can pick off any drivers on this opening lap and give ourselves a better position to work with for the rest of this sprint race. Only 11 laps, but truthfully, nothing much happens. I am trying to make this as concise and as action-packed as possible. Nothing much happens for the first few laps. You can see lap 2, we're still behind Thomas. We got our first warning for track limits by just cutting turn 10 out a little bit too much. And that is pretty much a warning shot for us, just to be careful. I think Quantum was out of the race. I think so. I think he was the only person who invalidated in qualifying. And I think he's had a moment in the race and he's binned it. Another car's binned it as we're down to 18 now. But by lap 7, we're struggling to follow cars. We're struggling to follow Thomas. He has made a few errors, but the pace has been really strong, especially from the front runners. And we're coming under pressure from Jesler, going round the outside of us into turn 7. He'll have the inside for turn 8. And that is him up into P10, but I'm not too bothered about it. He's got a 3-second penalty, so it won't be too much of an issue. As we skip to lap 9 now, you can see Joe Murphy, very quick on this game. I've said on streams that he needs to go outside because he's that rapid. He's had a collision earlier on in the lap, and now Thomas is in front of him, and surely he won't be wanting to sit behind his teammate. So now we're going to make sure we just stick with him, and maybe he can take us further, as Thomas has a massive moment in the third sector. Murphy goes through. Thomas doesn't get the best run through the double left, and we're finally going to pass him.
Finally.
You can just hear me say finally, because I was hoping to pass him for quite some time, and we take advantage of the one moment we were given, and we're up into P10 again. And obviously, a few cars have got penalties up ahead, so we could try and nab a little bit more as we move on to the last lap of the race. We're trying to chase Murphy, but we have a massive drift.
That's what you want. That's exactly what you want.
And you can sarcastically hear me say, that's exactly what you want, because that has ended any chance of passing Murphy in this race. We did have 2 warnings, in fairness, so we had to be mindful of not getting a penalty, because that would have ended any chance of us scoring points. As our teammate was down the order, he struggled for pace in the sprint. As we're coming up to the line now, Renz Thomason has won the race. We're going to get P10 on track, and it is going to be up to P9 by the time we cross the line. And that is the first of 2 races done, and we've already scored points. So obviously the objective was not to be last, and we've managed to do a lot better than that. We managed to get P9, 2 points on the board, as that's pretty massive for us considering we are sat bottom of the world standings. Not many people expected FRT to qualify, so the fact we've qualified is massive. But now we can get into qualifying, where we set up the grid for the race. Now, on our first lap, I was mainly prioritising this session to practice, but unfortunately, the session's not gone quite to plan. You can see we've passed the halfway point of this qualifying session, and you can see we are nowhere near Lafitte's middle sector. This lap has been absolutely disastrous, as you saw us cut to the middle sector when we're drifting through that same hairpin in the Anderson Bridge, where it cost us potentially to challenge Joe Murphy at the end of the sprint. So we're looking to just cross the line here and just get a lap on the board, and across the line, it's a 26.8. We're emphatically last, and that is not going to be troubling anyone, for that matter. So we've got work to do on this final lap. I did try and improve by nearly a second on the previous lap, but Harvey distracted me as I was trying to cross the line. So we've got 1 lap to save the qualifying session and not be last. Let's see what we can do. Down towards turn 1. Hit the brakes as soon as you see the curb on the right hand side. Very easy to invalidate through turn 2, but through turn 3, we managed to get a decent turn in and a decent exit as well. And we've found nearly a 10th. Going down towards turn 5. Very borderline with the curb there. Very easy to exceed track limits if you turn in too early. But we're a 10th and a half up in this lap. Now down to a 10th as we come to the first sector split. It's a 0.9 first sector, which isn't the best, but for considering what the lap is right now, we just need to improve, as we are going through turns 8 and 9. Pretty decent exit, 2.5 tenths up as we come towards turn 10. We're going to try and be a bit braver on the turn. If we don't turn in enough there, but we are going to bounce over this curb, which does help us gain a bit more time. Look at the delta just shooting up here. You can tell where we've lost most of the time. Straight line braking through the Anderson Bridge, and look at that. We are 9 tenths up. So it was all in the middle sector, which is basically the hardest part of this racetrack. But now, we just need to carry this more forward to the final sector. 10th and a half up on Fraser's lap at the moment. We are nearly a second up. So this is going to be a much needed improvement to lift ourselves off the bottom row as we come through the final sector. Breaking up the 50-metre board, down to 3rd gear, shifting up the gears now towards the final 2 corners, where we send it through and up to the line. It's only 14th with a 25.8. Now, you're probably wondering, Brad, how the hell have you only managed to gain 5 places? But truthfully, P14 was probably the maximum we were going to get. My PB was a 0.7, I think. So even if we did do that, we would have been 14th anyways. So 15th isn't really that bad at all. We're not really on the pace. You can see we're 7 tenths off, but that's with a lack of practice. But this is Singapore. It's a battle of attrition. We're going to get into the race and see what we can do. Shizu Ogwin, you might notice, is down the order as well, so I don't think he was happy with his qualifying. And we're going to be starting on the hards, as we're going to try and use the alternate strategy to good effect here. So the main priority is sticking with the medium runners. That's going to be the hardest thing. But here we go. Time for the main race, where all the points are on the line. 5 red lights in front of us for the Singapore Grand Prix in world. And we are underway for the main race. And it's a pretty good getaway once again. We're drawing up alongside, as I can't speak, the McLaren of Fraser this time around. We're going to hold the outside line, just like we did in the sprint. And it helped us on the exit of turn 3. And we get up into P14 in this race. And we've got our mate Shizu Ogwin just next to us now, as he's bogged down a little bit on those hard tyres. We're going to go side by side with the Shizou driver as we're going in towards turn 7. He covers the inside line. He was a little bit boxed in there by the Ferrari, but we're not going to try and challenge anything. The plan here is to essentially stick with him. As you know, he's pretty quick, so if we can stick with him, we can definitely make the strategy work. If you remember back to my AEC mini-series video in Qatar, we did a similar thing where I was keeping up with Bobbert and Ogwin in that race to make the alternate strategy work. And unfortunately, I went one lap too long that day. So we're going to make sure we do the same thing, but pit at the same time as him. We just want to shadow him for the whole race and see how far he can get us there. But you can see, in between the laps here, you can see he's passed MVR Gabor, who's got damage. And unfortunately, we've lost DRS to Ogwin, and now we're going to pass Gabor. I actually thought at the time that Gabor just let him through, because Ogwin used to be in MVR, but no, that's not the case. Ogwin just passed him, and we just had to wait a lap to pass that stricken Haas. And we're up into 13th now. So it's not too bad, but now we don't have DRS. And obviously you saw in the sprint race, the pace wasn't the best compared to everyone around us. We were struggling to follow cars around. But now you can see on to the end of lap 6, you can see that TF10 Giovanno's had a moment, and he's AI right now. And we've come to a very inconvenient part of the racetrack, as you can hear me just getting annoyed. As by the time he does get back into the game, we almost make contact with him. And unfortunately, we don't have DRS. And he doesn't have it either. So, Ogwin managing to put 2 cars in between us as we start lap number 7. And this is really frustrating because the plan is to stick with Ogwin. And unfortunately, some cars are getting in the way as we go through turns 5, I think. I think that's our second warning of the race. I think I got one very early on in the early laps, which I don't really quite remember. But now that's the second warning. So we're going to have to do 24 laps of this place without getting a warning, which is going to be pretty difficult. So it's safe to say that we've got our work cut out in front of us. There is a car in front of us, I believe it is Casper. And he's on the softs, so his soft tyres are going off already. So that's not ideal for him. I'm not too sure why you'd start on the softs. The softs are terrible race tyres, especially around Singapore, where the tyre wear is pretty bad. So I'm not sure why, but that means we're going to have to pass him as well, along with Giovanna, because the hard tyres are surely quicker, as my teammate has binned it. And that is a safety car on lap number 7 of this Singapore Grand Prix. So now, this is where things get very interesting, guys. Because now, it's too early to box. I don't like the idea of boxing. We won't gain anything out of it. So we're going to stay out. And crucially, Ogwin has done the same thing. BRT Thomas behind us has done the same thing. And along with Joe Murphy, who's been leading the way. So we're up to P3. Simply because we haven't stopped yet. But that means, if you guys know now, just because you're on old tyres, everyone behind us is on fresh tyres. And that means the second that Thomas gets overtaken, the floodgates will be open. Because everyone and their nan is going to be trying the same thing. Trying to barge their way through just because we're on newer tyres. That's essentially how league racing goes these days. I remember Tom97 mentioned it all the way back on F1 2021. Where if you're on a slower tyre, people think you're so much slower and will barge you out the way.
Come on, Thomas, do a job for us, man.
So in order for us to avoid that, which is inevitable, it's inevitable that it's going to happen actually. But for now, you can hear me say, I need Thomas to do us a favour. The longer that Thomas can hold these guys back, the more he delays the inevitable of us trying to get absolutely bulldozed out the way. As Fede's out of the race. And that's another one. Another safety car on lap 10. And you can see we are skipping through the restarts here. Trying to save some time on this video. So I hope you guys appreciate that. So we're going to do this again. You can't use AI under the safety car, so these tyres are stone cold. Murphy leads the way. Ogwin second. We're third. If you stop the count right now, we get a podium. So that'll be fantastic. But unfortunately, we've only crossed 13 laps of this race. Still a long way to go, and we still need to make a pit stop along with the 3 cars around us. But the main priority is just to stick with these 2 up ahead. We're not going to try and challenge them because that would be really silly, because we're all in the same boat here. So trying to overtake them would mean that it opens the door for everyone else, including Rens Thomason, who is really eager to pass Thomas. He's a lot closer, you can see, with the gaps on the left-hand side of your screen. And by the time we get on turn 7, he's through. Rens Thomason has overtaken Thomas And that means we're next.
Yeah, Thomas has been sent back. I'm next now.
And you can see in the position counter, Thomas has lost 2 places, or even more than that already. And he was passed just a few corners ago. So, this is not going to be fun here, guys. This is not going to be a fun part of the video at all. Because I'm going to have to defend from Renz, who's very quick. I raced him in COT around here, and he proved to be very quick again. But unfortunately, our life's going to be a lot harder now.
Let's see if we gone to standby, man. Ah, shit.
And you can see we momentarily had to pause the game because my TV has gone on standby. Owen and Murphy pull away. Reigns is looking to barge his way through into turns 1, 2 and 3. He's through. And now Rayanek fancies his way through. We're going to try and retain position here as much as we can.
Yeah, I'll sort it out now, but I'm not okay. I had that coming, to be honest. It's just my TV went on to standby. I fucked it over.
Now that is not ideal. Simply because it was coming. The collision was inevitable. I will be honest with you guys. Yes. That was always going to happen if we were trying to fight back here. But now we've lost every bit of track position we gained by staying out. And unfortunately, it's a repeat of the sprint race. We're just struggling to follow the cars in front. And because we're on older tyres, we don't have much to fight with, even if there's fighting going up ahead. But what you're going to see now is really going to change the race as Thomas is out.
Oh, Thomas is dead. And there's the miracle.
And that breeds another safety car. But this is where the lost positions really hurt.
See, this is where the places really piss me off now. Look at that. Ah. It's not ideal, is it, man? Oh. Fair play, flop move. What a move!
You can see that the safety car has basically reset the race. Everyone diving into the pit for a new set of tyres. So effectively, if we didn't have that spin... What's going on with my voice there? If we didn't have that spin, we would have been in pretty decent track position and really fancied ourselves for a much higher place. Of course, we're jumping people in the pit lane right now. And obviously I was in admiration of Flotman's overtaking the pit lane. I think he had wheel issues or something, or pedal issues, which we will get to in the end. But right now, we're P12. We could be at least 5 places higher if we didn't have that collision with Rayanek. So, there's still all to play for here. The safety car's in, everyone's bunched together, and we can go racing once more here in the Singapore Grand Prix. Still 12 laps to go. Lots of time for things to happen. So, even though we've lost a bunch of places after getting taken out and having our TV on standby, I'm still insisting that there's definitely a chance of points. This feels like the sprint race because we did 11 laps on the set of mediums, and I was hoping it would be a similar thing as DRS is enabled on the next lap. On to lap 21 now. But Giovanni has other ideas. He sends it at turn 7. I'm not too happy about it. We're going to try and return the favour at turn 8 on the inside.
Oh, shit. Oh, my God. This is what happens when they don't know you. They think they could just dive bomb you for nothing.
Okay, caution. Virtual safety car is out. Reduce speed and maintain a positive delta on your dash.
You can actually fuck off, man.
Now, I will admit, that is not my finest overtaking attempt on this channel. Either way, we were both in a war. Ogween has binned it at turn 10. He went 3 wide at turn 10, and he's paid the price. I don't know what was going on there. He told me he didn't really care after the race, because he's not really caring about racing as much as before, but that's a whole other thing. Meanwhile, we've got to calm down. We're going to just box for a new set of medium tyres.
I'm not sure.
It gets to the end of the race, and at this point, you know, you have to think about it. We've been streaming for at least a good 2 hours now, a good hour and a half, driving around Singapore, where concentration might not be high. And at this point, I'm just thinking to myself, there's only 9 laps to go. 8 laps to go now. It'll be 8 as we cross the line. We're just trying to get to the end of this race. And there's still time for things to happen. Still 8 laps to go. We are still in the final points paying position with Giovanni behind us on the softs. So we will have to bear that in mind as we get going again. 8 laps to go here. And at this point, getting to the end of the race is pretty much the main priority. Obviously, I've mentioned before, we have been streaming for a while as Ryan M is out of the race. He's binned it at the exit of turn 5 there. And it's very ironic because that's where we were spun round. And we somehow kept out of the wall. He couldn't quite do it on this occasion. And he's out of the race. So that's a shame because you have to think, we've been streaming, we've been live, we've been racing for a better part of 2 hours, including 2 qualifying sessions and a sprint race. So having people retiring is always a going thing to see, as Quantum's
disconnected again.
Has disconnected, and that's not for the first time throughout this entire sprint weekend, as Gabor side by side with Georgian in the Mercedes, as there's a car going slowly. I think that's Renz Thomason who's got damage. So we've gained 2 places, and now Giovanni is looking for a move onto us. We're giving him a weave, and we're just letting him through as he is on the softs.
Well, I've just let Giovanni go, just to let him do his thing.
So that's the plan. He's on the softs, he's going to be on the faster tyre, and he's got a penalty. So even if he finishes ahead of us, we'll get the place back anyway on penalties if we stay disciplined. And obviously he wants to try and make some moves. He's eager to pass Georgian in the Mercedes. He makes contact at the Anderson Bridge, and through goes Simba. We pass 2 cars in 1 corner, and we're up into P11. We seal the move, going down towards this right-hander, where Norris nearly put it in the wall, but we're through, and we're just 1 place away from the top 10, where we were before we were spun round. But nothing much happened. Everyone was sitting back, saving battery, prioritising this final lap, and we're looking to try and pass Fraser. He started 14th, we were 15th, and the top 10 is right in front of us. Can we try and make things happen on this last lap? You can see Fraser's made a few mistakes. He goes really wide, but there's just not enough space there. Going into this heart of Sector 2, we tap the wall a little bit as we're trying to keep our concentration for 1 final lap. But something is about to happen up ahead.
You've done. Gian and Casper, Flack and Gabor right in behind as well. Flopman to the outer line. He got blocking up into the wall. Flopman is out of the race.
And after everything he's been through in this race, TTM Flopman's evening ends in a wall. And I can't believe it. I had to include that clip because it was going mental on Twitter a few days after the race. But there's still things going on in front of us. Joe Murphy's the winner. You can see the whole bunch of cars fighting for the same piece of tarmac. It's who's who as we cross the line. 2 cars had a penalty in front of us. We get P8 somehow. I don't know how, but in the end, we do get promoted to P7 in this Singapore Grand Prix. I'm gonna be honest, I don't even know how many points I've scored here, but that is massive. Massive. Returning to World, we were called up late. It's the highest level. We didn't have that much practice, and we've managed to pull off 2 points finishes, which is not a bad effort at all. And I was delighted. Of course, this is probably the longest stream I've ever done on my Twitch channel. It was very long, very, very tiring. 2 hours in Singapore is very demanding, even on the F1 game. And we've managed to see it through and score some much needed points for our team. And hopefully there'll be another chance to race here. So there you go. We've managed to get P7 here in the Singapore Grand Prix from 15th on the grid. Absolute carnage once again. But this time we see the end of it and we get some much needed points. And points in World as well. Obviously we all know what happened in Baku on F1 22 nearly 2 years ago. We can put that to rest now because points are ours in WR's Legacy Division. The highest level in console racing. We've managed to make a decent showcase of ourselves and get some points. Subscribe for more, check the videos on screen, and as always, I'll see all of you in the next one.